go ahead and call our meeting back to order. Mr. Linden, can you read us out of close, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption at 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. And I also move to certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
I'll second. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Greenway.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linden.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Bajani.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes, ma'am. We have no action from closed, but we will be adding a new agenda item, 3.09, discussion of the name for the new CTE Center. Item 3.01, Instructional Resources Adoption Committee recommendations for board approval. Mr. Brian Weeks. Welcome, Mr. Weeks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely, and staff. Our adoption committees have been pretty busy here lately. We've done the AP and dual enrollment social studies adoptions, the AP psychology, human geography, U.S. history, government, and world history. We also had German 1 through 3 and German 4, 5, and AP. And then I think there may be some discussion warranted for the Virginia Literacy Act. Joe, did you have anything you wanted to or?
Some questions we talked about. We have to adopt or to meet the Virginia Literacy Act for the fall. We have to have it ready to go. And Mrs. Peterson worked with Mrs. Hogan very closely, and we were able to find money to purchase HMH, which is on the Virginia approved list that they published, I guess, in December. If you have any questions at all, I'm happy to answer them.
So that pretty well concludes the adoption portion, unless you have some questions on that.
Anybody got any questions?
Are they completely new textbooks? Or are they just new editions of those books? Or
For the most part, they are new textbooks to us. One of them is a repeat where we're getting the next edition, but we did go through a full adoption and look at other options, like the psychology one. But
Mr. Chair, if I could just add one thing, since because you mentioned the Virginia Literacy Act. If you remember, the rest of that discussion is a couple of work sessions ago, Mr. Legault came to explain that because of the new Literacy Act, which is the new state law requiring us, statewide to adopt the uniform, more phonics-based approach under science of reading, which I think everybody's in favor of and so forth. But there's lots of requirements. This is one of those requirements, that we adopt that core curriculum. And at the elementary level, that's where we had not previously done that in terms of something that was on the approved state list. So that's where at the previous work session we discussed that we're going to have to do this off cycle, find the funding to do that. So that's what Mr. Legault was referring to in terms of having to do that off cycle. Another piece of this, and I think he alluded to this in his presentation when we discussed this, was with the Virginia Literacy Act, not only do we have requirements involving the adoption of the new core curriculum as well as the supplemental, which we're already good on that front. There's also a tremendous amount of training that's required for all teachers in Virginia. This is a K-8 initiative. So basically all elementary teachers by the end of the next school year are going to have to complete the Virginia Literacy Act training, which is over and above what we do specifically as far as learning new textbook materials and so forth. That's going to be a really good resource for them. But there are these online modules that they also have to do that the state is producing for all elementary teachers for next year, other than the encore teachers. And then the middle school level, not just your English teachers, but also your math teachers, your science teachers, your social studies teachers. I don't know why the other folks got left out, but basically your core folks all have to complete these online modules. And it's pretty significant. And I think the board will be, sympathetic to this. I mean, it's, we're hearing from our teachers all the time in terms of the amount of time that's required to do all the professional development training that's already required, as well as the other, tasks that they have to do. But this is over and above what they're already doing. It's a total of 27 hours that has to be completed by the end of next school year for quite a number of our teachers. And then for another number, it's about 18 hours. And so one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you all is the possibility of proactively thinking, how can we sort of offset some of that time next year? I just know that when we get into the school year, if we don't try to think ahead in terms of trying to offset some of that time, I think it's gonna be a real issue for our teachers. I think there's no way to do that on a 1-to-1 hour basis, but if we could think of some creative ways to try to build in some extra time for the teachers to complete the training, I think that would be something to really think about. So 2 suggestions I wanted to bring to you. One is perhaps, and you all know I don't like doing this, doing some additional early release times because I want to protect our instructional day. But if we could build in up to 2 additional early release days sometime next year, I've got a couple of days identified for a possibility for that, which would be October 30th and December 11th possibly, to designate for that. We already have, we're already building in 2 additional work days at the beginning of the school year in August. That's August 5th and 6th. Those are additional days we built into the calendar for next year, but we're already going to do that because the teachers need that. This VLA training is over and above what they already need. And the other rub is that the state is going to have the elementary modules available by August, but not the middle school. So we don't think the middle school modules are going to be available even until September. Again, they've got to complete it by the end of the year. So it's a pretty heavy lift, I think, for our teachers. That's why I wanted to kind of float the idea would we want to look at doing at least 2 extra early release days. The other thought, and of course Mr. Bradshaw is going to present the policy regarding PTO time. One thing that we also thought about is, could we incentivize the training? And again, you can't offset this hour for hour, but just as a gesture, maybe at the end of next school year, maybe float the idea of granting an extra PTO day to use for the following year when they complete that training. The cost of doing that will be the cost of a sub day if they choose to do that. So Max, you were talking about for I think it's 611 teachers involved. So the maximum liability there would be about $70,000, which I think we can handle. But while he was talking about the textbooks are related to this Virginia Literacy Act, I just kind of wanted to bring that up in terms of just putting that on your radar as something that I think is going to be a real need to try to get ahead of for next year. So I don't have any questions or thoughts about any of that, but just wanted to give you some food for thought on that.
All right.
You might think, we haven't used snow days in the last couple of years. I don't know if one of those could be used to help offset that in some way.
Yeah, you could do a non-student day, just, and I certainly thought about that. The only thing, and early release days, those are hard too, and that's why we don't want to abuse that. But the benefit of doing the early release days versus just a complete day off is, that's extra, for students or, families in terms of, managing that day. And they're also not getting fed their breakfast and lunch that day. And I know for most kids that probably doesn't make it a difference, but we have kids for whom that makes a difference.
Makes a huge
So
difference.
that's my only thought about that.
Yeah.
All right.
Not asking for any action today on that, but just wanted to kind of throw that out there as a need.
Thank you. Item 3.02, request to declare instructional resources as surplus for sale or disposal.
Okay, as it ties in with the adoption, we replace textbooks with new ones. It's time to surplus the old ones, so I'll spare you reading the list, but, the old health books and the social studies books and anything else that we've replaced over the years, and some that have just been lingering that we no longer need anymore are on this list, so we're requesting that they be surplused. Is there any questions regarding that? All right.
No.
Thank you.
Would that go on the consent, Ken?
Yes, sir, if you don't mind.
All right. Item 3.03, CTE campaign update. Mr. Jason Sir, Mr. Carl York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. Just appreciate the time. We wanted to follow up briefly from our last presentation, the school board work session last month on this topic. There were several questions that arose, and we wanted to address those as best we can for the board. We also wanted to talk a little bit to some of the other fundraising companies. I think that was one of the questions that came up. Are there others that do this? We've had some significant conversations with one company. They've been very, very helpful, but there are others out there that do similar work. So we have an update on that, and then talking about next steps. Just a reminder as to what we're doing here, and our slogan is partnering for more. We really want to make sure we set up right in this fundraising effort. One of the bullet number 3 there, that word capacity, is really, I think, the linchpin to the whole conversation, is trying to figure out what the capacity is of the region, of folks, philanthropic organizations, generous individual donors, et cetera. What's the capacity we need to be aware of? And of course, with a partnership that we're considering here and talking about, what do we get with that? We get a process that's time tested. These companies that we've talked with have been at it for a while and have things that are time tested, and we benefit from that. We'd have the smart council and strategies that have been tested over time. That research and data that they bring to bear as well would help us determine that capacity. And then as we identify donors and cultivate relationships, we talk about it often that we're not in this just for the short term, we're in this for the long term, and that kind of leads to the next, that 5th bullet. It really gets us excited about thinking about an endowment situation that we might be able to help and set CTE up long term with some great opportunities for students and for the workforce. And then the whole concept here is, yes, it's going to cost a little bit up front. We talked about that last time, but we feel like it would be a good investment, and we have a real good opportunity to capitalize on that investment and make some headway on this fundraising effort. So Carl's going to get into some of the details here as far as some of the questions that were broached last time.
So we've listed the questions you guys had and tried to get out and get answers on those, and talked to a number of other different companies. The first one was cost, and in Tier 1, and again, a lot of these questions, a lot of these answers are based on Kinetic Fundraising, which is one of the companies we've been learning a lot from, talking to. Cost is $48,000 plus expenses. We asked them, and they've been very gracious about changing their model a little bit for what we want. We didn't want an open-ended expense. We wanted something that we could know exactly what the cost would be. So they thought that $6,000 would be fine for the Tier 1 opportunity, and that's over 6 months. So it's $48,000 plus $6,000 for expenses. $54,000 is what the cost is. Now, based on the other companies that I've been talking to, this is very reasonable for what we get. So again, this is all new to us, going out and exploring these types of companies. But everybody we run into that's done really well has partnered with somebody like this to take advantage of their process and really kind of move them down the road on what they're doing. So in Tier 1. Again, this is 6 months. It's we would get a feasibility study where they come in and look at capacity around companies around the area, how much money's out there, how much, what possibility we have for getting that. So that's important. That was one of our big questions, is trying to understand how much is out there to begin with. A case statement, which was really the who, what, where, why does it matter? the goal, the benefits, and really that's what we would go in and approach companies with to explain what we're doing, what we're trying to get done, and why it's important to them. The philanthropic scan is really around wealth assessment, and it's more around individuals and families. And
Yeah, I think with those individuals, that was kind of something not directly on our radar. We were thinking more about foundations and big corporations that might be able to, and we still obviously have that on the radar, but I think from what we've heard, a significant portion of philanthropic contributions come from individuals. And so we don't want to leave that portion out. Matter of fact, talking with Burton alumni that actually had good conversations with some that, seem interested in this type of thing, benefited from their experience at the current Burton Center back in the day when they went and would be inclined to come alongside. They're getting excited about hearing about the new center. I think those types of opportunities are something we want to tap into.
yeah, that 60-30-200 is basically around interviews. They come in and they interview key players in the area. So they would have 60 plus interviewees that they would talk to, gauge our reputation, gauge their feelings about what we're doing and their ability to give and their want to give. The 30 is personal interviews they would do, and then there would be 200 constituents that would be surveyed. So again, a lot of gathering information on what's out there, what's the capacity, and our reputation in the area and what we can do. This will all help us make sure that when we're out there, we're going to the people that have a heart for what we're doing. Foundation review. So again, we don't want to miss any opportunities. They would do a foundation review to see where we could that might help us, and then a major gift strategy, a plan around how to get to whatever goal we determine. So again, they're doing a lot of things in this 6 months that they normally stretch out over a period of time. We asked them to do that. We felt like some of these processes are pretty expensive. We felt like maybe this was something that would certainly be affordable, if we all agree, and it certainly would be of value to us as we go out and we campaign. The second tier, so there's two systems. That's tier one. The second tier is really all of that spread out over 3 years. They really want to do this over 3 years. We don't have that time. We don't have an interest for that either. A lot of in tier two is around board development, volunteer development. We don't need any of that, so we've kind of pushed them into a corner with this 6-month deal. That's about all the time we need, and that's the kind of ramp, that's the kind of runway we feel like we need to be able to get this thing really rolling. Direction around sponsorship levels. Again, some of these things, you don't realize it till you get into it. The gift levels, whether we're doing a platinum, a gold, a silver, how many levels we do, a lot of it will depend on the sponsors that we sign up or the partners that we sign up and what they give us. We want to make sure that we're fair, it's equitable. And then how to display them in the building, how to handle that. We want to make sure that's classy. We want to make sure that that's something that everybody's proud of. And then the time frames, how long are these sponsors, how long would it be for their gift? We want to make sure we don't make it forever. We want to make sure we can come back and re-sign up people. So feedback, one of the questions we had from this group was feedback from others using a fundraising partner. These are both positive and negative. I really appreciate the folks that I talked to. They told us the good and the bad, and that's what we really wanted. One particular group said, they wish they had a termination clause. They went the 3-year route. They got to about 2.5 years. They felt like they understood the process. They would have liked to have kind of parted ways and saved some money. Again, we won't have that issue if we do a 6-month plan because it's jam-packed with things that we need. Another group talked about wasting time not getting set up properly at the beginning, kind of going down the wrong road and coming back. If you're out there selling and you're talking to people, you don't want to go down the wrong road and have to backtrack and then start over again. So that was important. In-market service days with their talent. We'll have whoever we pick, they'll be in the market, boots on the ground, meeting with us and meeting with businesses, and that was really important. Grant writing was another thing they're really good at. They've got professionals that do it all the time. One group talked about the consultant makes the difference. When we talked with Connect, which is really amazing to us, one of the, and they're a big group, they're 70, 80 large, one of their co-founders would take us on. So there's something about this area, there's something about this project that they really are excited about. To me, that's a real good sign. You get somebody like that, they're going to want it to be a huge success so they can do more with it, talk about it. So the consultant, the person that you get out of the company is really important. Again, reviewing grants, they have professionals that are really good at that. Flexibility, we want flexibility to opt out of things that we think we don't need. We don't want to pay for things that we think we can handle. Marketing services, something we think that we can do. So these groups would be flexible to that. And then determining campaign language, it's really interesting. We talked about this a little bit. We were calling it a capital campaign. That doesn't always work for every company. So we want to make sure that the language is right. Right now, we're just calling it a campaign. It could be a gift campaign. We want to make sure. So those things, they don't seem like big things, but if you don't get that right from the beginning, when you go in there and you talk to these companies, there may be some language that prevents you from working together. And we don't want to
pigeonhole ourselves into a company not participating because of some terminology we use. And these companies have a pulse on that as well, finger on the pulse of that.
Competitors in the market, so we talked to several. I talked to several. Kinetic is the one we've spent a lot of time with. They're out of Kansas City. They also have a group out of Wilmington, North Carolina, so they understand our region. They understand our people. They're excited about our project. They're all excited about the project. Carter Consulting Group was another I talked to out of D.C. Every time I talk to one of these groups, we learn a little bit more about how this works and the best approach. Curtis Group out of Virginia Beach was another one that was really interested. Capstone Advancement was one I talked out of. I tried to pick ones that were close by that understood, our market and our people that were highly sought after. And Capstone Advancement was one I talked to in Charlotte that really they were one that decided when I talked to them that maybe they didn't want to venture this way. They were more interested. They were doing a lot of work around Charlotte. So I appreciate that. We don't want to waste time. If they're interested, we want them. We want to keep talking. If they don't want to, then. But you can see. I mean, there's some good ones out there. Alexander McNabb out of Chicago, Giving 3 out of Richmond's a good one. Cape Fletcher Associates out of Indianapolis, Allie Sterling out of Toledo, Donerly. There's so many out there. So the key for me when I'm talking to these people is who's a good fit. Who feels like somebody we can work with and that's adaptable to what we need. So again, we're not assuming anything, but we're approaching this like, hopefully we can work with one of these groups as we move forward.
So, next steps, looking at identifying a funding source. Of course, that came up last month when we were here. And then we'd like to get moving on this. We feel like we're almost behind the 8 ball here, but we would like to get that council on the capacity issue and really be able to get moving on this. So if we have any questions, be glad to entertain those and hopefully have a little discussion on the funding source, et cetera.
Any questions?
Yeah. Was there discussion with any of these companies as to the ideal time frame as to when this may start? I mean, we haven't broken ground yet over there. Is it 12 months before we open? Is it now? Is it 6 months before we open? Is
Actually, the
6 months ago?
Right, 6 months ago. I think some of the feeling we get, correct me if
No, that's
I'm
right.
wrong there, but-
That's right. They're comfortable with where we are, but we're up against it. It takes a while to develop these relationships and to get, all companies have a different cycle on when they budget and when they make these decisions. So you get too close and they've already decided what they want to do with their money. But we're thinking about this beyond, the building just coming out of the ground. We want to develop relationships. So, we want to start a conversation with these companies where ongoing we're talking to them about helping us moving forward, because there's going to be, as technology changes, as we need new equipment, as new expenses come up, if we're going to keep pace, we need their help moving forward. So to your point, now is when we need to be out there.
But there's no fear is that it's too far out that it may not materialize, or, I mean, obviously the funding is there, but.
Well, I think with the commitment that Roanoke County Schools has put into this new center, I mean, we can talk to that. That's a talking point that it's real strong. I don't get any feeling from anything that I've heard that, we're jumping the gun here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I'm not sure, why would you ask that question about, I mean, we're committed to the project,
Yeah.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we need to make sure, I know we're committed, we need to make sure we can convince everybody else that we're committed.
I still don't understand that, but nonetheless, so are the 4 groups the ones we've divided that are kind of put at the top, that they're highlighted in the green?
Those were the ones that I talked to because of how close they were and kind of reading about them and talking to other people. They were the most similar to what I think we need. So a lot of it's based on what I think we need.
But if we put out an RFP, then anybody could
Yeah.
put in a proposal.
So these are just the ones we're not locked in.
No, no.
Okay, gotcha.
No.
That was my
Would we have to do an
question.
RFP, or are there any out there that already have state or federal contract we could piggyback off of?
We could double check that. That's something I haven't looked into. That's a good question.
That could speed the process up a little bit
It
if
would.
we were to.
It would, absolutely.
And let's explain to anybody that might watch this what we're talking about with these funds. What are we planning to use those funds that we're raising? Because I've had people ask me,
Sure.
and I've explained, but there must be other people out there that.
Sure, yeah. So as far as CTE goes, we have a new center coming along. We want to make sure that we outfit that center with the best for our students and for the career pathway development that those students are entering. That coupled with the idea of an endowment situation where students could benefit long-term, we could have a funding source to benefit students with possible scholarships, those types of things. That's the driving force behind doing a fundraising
Right,
effort.
I want to
Yep,
make sure
yep.
people understand
Sure.
we're not raising funds to build the building. We've already got the
Right.
funds approved. It's not.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but to your point, Mr. Greenway, I think that even as far as like equipment and things like that goes, it's less about what's needed here and now, but those things are going to change.
And technology changes, and we're wanting to outfit our students with the top of the line equipment, technology, today's resources, and so it's a helping hand, if you will.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Now, do we need to get this on consent agenda? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, I think
Action.
discussion about, the funding, I want to make
Well,
sure that we're.
Where's it coming
available.
from? That's
Right. So as far as like whatever the fee would be, you see the ballpark, again, if we do an RFP or if we find a contractor right off of, but we have the ballpark idea. I did talk to Ms. Peterson about, that amount of money. We currently combining, unspent funds in the superintendent's account and the school board account. We would have enough to combine as far as, our year-end money is right now to use for that purpose, and so she would help us to do that. So
Okay.
we feel confident we can cover that, using unspent funds.
So you feel like we need to get this RFP going as soon as possible?
Correct. And I
Or-
don't know if it's a consent thing or if it's just.
Well, we could put it on action
verbal
maybe and
approval
just
or-
make sure everybody hears it again, or do you want to put it in consent? If you do, I'm good with it, but
That's
I'll
up to
make
the
sure
will of the
everybody
board,
else.
yeah.
I'm good with it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Why don't we consider consent unless there's any sort of new information that we feel like, hey, we really need to get in front of you before you actually vote, then we'll play it by ear.
You okay with that, Cheryl?
Yes, that works.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3.04, paid time off policies. Mr. Jim Bradshaw.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dr. Nicely. Back on March 7th, I presented the entire PTO plan. Basically this right now today that I'm bringing back to you, the policies that would go along with that plan I presented to you. So just some highlights in there. All employees contracted for 240 or fewer days will receive PTO instead of sick leave. Just as a reminder, 260 will still continue with the sick leave. 12 PTO days or sick days will be granted to full-time employees who work a minimum of 30 hours per week. 240 and 230-day contracted employees will earn 14 PTO days per year. So they either get 12 or 14, depending if they're a 220 or lower or fewer, or 230, 240, they're going to actually get 14. And then if you're a 260, you get 12 sick days. Okay, so nothing's changed there. Part-time employees, the judge will spell that out, that they're going to get 6 PTO days, and then employees contracted for 240 or fewer days are eligible for that 2 additional PTOs that they can earn. We talked about that. We broke it into 4 buckets. They could earn 4 half PTO days, depending on if they work during those designated timeframes. And I've got all that broken out in the next policies that I'll be glad to go through the policies, answer questions, but basically the policies are just replication of what we discussed in detail on March 7th. So if you want me to open up one of those or talk about any of them, I'll be glad to go through any of that with you.
Just as a reminder that the additional incentive piece is it's sort of an incentive to help people try to avoid using those, like on the Mondays and Fridays during those time periods. And so for folks who can do that, then that's where that extra incentive comes around.
Yes, I can find that somewhere in here if you all want to see those again.
I think the biggest thing is
There it is right there.
nobody's losing anything.
Correct.
Nobody's losing any days that they already have.
So let me ask this question that was asked of me this past week, and I didn't have an answer, and told him I would ask about it. How many do we have? So going forward, this isn't exactly what you're talking about, but going forward, we have how many employees with more than 250 days banked?
We had 8. I believe it was 8 when I presented that.
So, and all they can request is 250, correct?
That's correct. And anybody that's above that, we're giving them the option to cash those days out starting next year, so they can get.
So they
those
can
days.
get the days above the 250?
Correct.
Okay,
That's
good,
correct.
because that was the question. They thought they couldn't, that
No,
was
no,
the
no.
limit.
No,
So
sir.
I
They
think-
can absolutely get those. We just have a plan where they can work their way down to the 250. And eventually, in years that I won't see here probably, where our hybrid employees, they can only carry 90 total.
Okay.
So we're never going to see those 250
50,
days
that's good,
again.
yeah, no. that's-
But yes, we definitely are doing that. And also, if an employee is still over that 250, we're going to give them the option of still using the old plan, which, as I showed, they would lose a lot of money, so nobody really wants to use the old plan
Right.
compared to retiring using that 25%.
But you've got
of the
one
rate.
that's retiring this year.
They get, yep,
They'll get, if they're 260, they'll get the
I don't think we had any this year retiring that was over the 250. but I'll
one
double
coming
check that.
up, I think.
Maybe next year, but we're going to give them the option to buy them out and then use them.
Yes,
That's
gotcha.
correct. Yeah, we'll make sure that we take care of our employees because,
Yeah.
again, we showed that figure in there that if you were cashing out, let's say 270 days,
Mhm.
and we're using the old rate that we were using, you would lose, $6,000, $7,000 compared to going to the new plan. So we would give them the option.
Yeah, they were just talking about the
Of what they
days
were.
over that 250. That was the only thing they were worried about.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's correct.
thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw.
Thank you.
3.05, attendance boundary rezoning updates, Glen Cove to Masons Cove. Dr. Ron Stegall.
Just to clarify, you want that on consent for next time, or you want to present that again as an action?
That's fine.
That's fine. I mean, as long as we,
Unless we
What
want
we
to get
talking-
the message out.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, we're asking for approval for the starting July 1. I don't want anybody confused that this is a this year policy for these. So I'm sorry, I should have said
Yeah,
that.
that's
I
right, sure.
apologize, Mr. Chairman. So,
All right. Go ahead, Dr. Stegall.
All right, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. I'm here to give an update on the proposal for us to adjust the attendance boundaries and move some potential students in identified streets from Glen Cove Elementary to Masons Cove Elementary. So to give you an update, we had a parent meeting, and that was held on April 23rd at Masons Cove. And then after that meeting, sent out a survey to all 34 families. And based on the survey responses, we were able to accommodate all the requests from all the families, and we would be providing transportation for 6 years. So basically what that looks like is if you have a middle school student or a high school student, and then you have an elementary student, you're grandfathered through. We would provide transportation for 6 years. After that 6 years, then the parents would be responsible for transportation. And all the families are aware of that. And because of the ability to accommodate all their requests from the survey, we would recommend that the school board consider approving the change in the attendance boundary, rezoning all streets included in this plan to Masons Cove Elementary, Glenver Middle School, and Glenver High School for all new students beginning the 24-25 school year.
How many did we have decide to change from where they were? Like to go from whatever school? One.
Which speaks volumes about where they're happy where they are.
Right. Well, when kids get established, they have their friends, their network.
Yes, this is really not going to be a immediate bang for our buck, but long term, especially when we're thinking about they're going to build those apartments down here, the intersection of Cove and Peters Creek. That's going to add more to Glen Cove. So anything we could do proactively now just to think ahead for the future, I think, will be wise.
That's right.
Okay.
And the majority of them had students at the middle school and the high school.
Well, I haven't heard anything negative, so you didn't hear anything negative from any
Not
of the
at all.
folks?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm good with it.
Okay.
All right. We got it. Thank you, Dr. Skull.
Uh-huh.
Item 3.06, surplus request, miscellaneous items, Mr. Todd Kegels.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good afternoon. We have a list of items. You have it in front of you. Put a packet at each of your spots before you came in. It has a list of all the items that are currently either not used or no longer useful to the school system. We're requesting to list all that for sale via surplus, and we'd ask that that be put on the consent agenda for the next meeting. Happy to answer any questions about those items if you have any.
No questions.
Sure would like that stereo set.
I thought somebody might question the gun set that's listed on there. But.
Item 3.07, Cave Spring High School Solar Power PPA Pilot Project.
Yes, sir. If just a sort of a refresher for the board, we had thoroughly researched solar energy through a power purchase agreement. It's been presented to the board multiple times. We've had groups come in and speak to the board to go over the details and tell us about their experiences. At the last time we discussed it, the board asked for us to publish an RFP for solar energy through a power purchase agreement under 3 different scenarios. We did that. The committee met and reviewed the proposals, chose 2 providers, and then met with them individually, evaluated their presentations, and then selected a provider to recommend to the board. The scenarios are listed at the bottom of the page that's in your packet there. The numbers that are in them are confidential because it would negatively impact our ability to negotiate future PPAs if that information were divulged, but you do have access to see those numbers. Our recommendation, well, maybe we should look at each scenario. We did not recommend the $1 million capital project with the 25-year agreement because that resulted in a 49% increase over what we currently pay to AEP, which is the exact opposite of our goal, which is to reduce our energy cost, to reduce and stabilize our energy cost. We didn't recommend the 20-year PPA because it resulted in a rate that was higher than the 25-year PPA, which was about $250,000 if you do all the calculations over the life of the agreement that we would pay for electricity. So the committee is recommending that we enter into a 25-year PPA agreement with a 0% escalator at the rate that's listed in the packet. That rate would remain the same for the 25 years. It's locked in. And the provider that we're recommending is Madison Energy. Given that we've discussed this, at length, I would ask that we add that to the consent agenda for the next meeting if the board is in agreement.
I'm going to be the contrarian here. I would prefer not to add that to the consent agenda and let us vote on that individually.
Okay,
All
yeah,
right.
happy to do that
We can put that.
as an action item for the next meeting.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anybody have any questions about Mr. Cagle or whatever? All right. Item 3.08, project updates.
I just want to go through some of the active projects that we have going on, just so the board knows what's going on. If you have any questions about any of these, I'm happy to, just stop me and happy to answer any questions. The first one is the Salem bus lot. We just finished repaving that. The photographs you see are actually before the top coat was put on. That's why it looks rough, but we just finished that. This is substantial investment, but, long-term infrastructure, it needed to be done. We actually had some employees get injured up there due to the condition of that lot, but that's been taken care of now. The north side bus lot, that's its current condition. That is out for RFP now. It will be, actually, the proposals are due tomorrow. We received one of them today, but all the others are due back tomorrow. We're going to replace that fence and repave the lot. We have to do that after July 1st because we're using next year's CMP funds to do that, but it's scheduled to be done through late summer.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes, sir.
Back to the other, which doesn't impact the paving, but in our thoughts on capital, and I know this is a terrible subject to bring up, but two things. First off, is that site still adequate for the usage that we need for our buses? And I hate asking this because I know probably the answer, but or at least that it's antiquated. But are we still able to effectively and with the technology that you have today available to? Is that still a good site?
It's antiquated. There has been some discussion about whether or not we would like to move those facilities out to the current Burton Center location when the new school is built. The maintenance folks have said they would like to. The transportation folks have actually said that, maybe they would not prefer to do that. The shop out there is definitely antiquated. I mean, it looks like it's, straight out of the 70s when you go in there. But if you're asking me, can we adequately maintain the fleet at that facility? The answer is yes, especially now with the new pavement. I mean, that's been an improvement.
But I guess my thoughts are, and I don't know the answer. I'm asking because I don't know the answer. Is there newer technology? Is there other functions that we could do in a little bit more updated facility? Or first off, I hate that it's in Salem. You know that.
We all hate that it's in Salem.
Yeah. Well, and so it can't be, other than Glenver maybe, that it's close. But I don't know. I think about that facility and what it does for us and all the not just buses. I mean, there's a lot of other fleet vehicles and
That's right.
and different things. And then, heaven forbid that we have to use these people to drive buses.
Which happens almost
A
every day.
lot. Apparently, it's happening more now towards the end of the year than it was at the beginning. And so, I just bring that up because whether things go good for me this year or not, I'm not going to be here. But it's something that the board needs to consider, I think, as you move down the road. Significant improvements to that site or finding another site. And if I'm wrong or off base, feel free, because I'm just taking a shot. I've been out there a couple times, and I've heard those, moans and groans about, well, we're doing it with this and we're doing it with that, doing the best they can. We've got great people. That's not, but giving them the tools they need and the facilities to do the job quickly, effectively. Maybe you can do them, save a pile of cost and effectiveness if they had a little better. And again, I don't know that's the case, but I can only assume that.
A modern facility in Roanoke County would be the dream scenario. I mean, that would be ideal, obviously. But we'd
This
prefer
is
to have everything
next to
in Roanoke
GW
County.
Carver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
In Salem. Next to GW Carver Elementary, over in that area.
In that area, yeah.
Used to be the old Roanoke County Garage.
Right.
It might be worth all of us, when you have time, to just go out there and kind of walk the site. Not that I know anything about mechanics, but, you know, the people there obviously know the facility, and it's worth just walking out there and saying hey, and it'd be nice to see their board members as well, and just, but again, this won't be something I can help solve over the next decade, but maybe y'all can.
And of course, our maintenance department is right across the street, so it's a great time of year to go up and just thank folks and so forth. But you're exactly right. I mean, just kind of off the cuff discussion. I mean, you know, in terms of would there be interest maybe in possibly, you know, purchasing that site from us if we ever decided to, if we could do it someplace else? I think the answer is absolutely yes. Obviously, the rub is, you know, the cost of putting it someplace else. You'd have to probably build that into our CIP.
No, I get it. It's
Right.
not I get it. That's why I
Right.
said I hate bringing it up, because this isn't a cheap discussion, but
no, the need's there, right?
I figure it is. I just,
It would be a multi-million-dollar project to
sure.
move the garages over there.
yeah. But if it's, you know, if it would save us thousands, and I don't know that it will, I'm just throwing that out, but if there, you know, there's got to be a cost benefit.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know if a facility comes available in Roanoke County or in city or whatever that's, you know, more beneficial to the donut, and to save us money in the future, it might be worth looking at. But again, I didn't mean to digress, but while you were there,
No, happy to.
just reminded me.
Happy to answer the questions, and if anybody, you know, any board members want to go out there and take a tour, I'm happy to arrange that as well. So I think I covered Northside. We're going to pave that this summer. It'll be late summer because the companies that we typically use are their schedules are getting full a lot with our stuff. So it'll be late summer, but it will be done hopefully by the end of August. Bonsec Elementary, they pretty much have a completely renovated HVAC system now. They got 3 new rooftop units. That was probably $350,000 or so we invested out there, even though that's still a modern looking building. The mechanical systems were original to the building, and they're you know, they had gotten old and unreliable, and that's all been taken care of now. So we look forward to trouble-free service out there this year. Although one of the new units are already required repair, so they're complex machines, and that happens sometimes. Fort Lewis, same thing. They got pretty much a completely new HVAC system. That's a new heat exchanger that we just installed. The new cooling towers there. All the heat pumps in all the classrooms are new. Working on the control systems out there as well. So we're looking forward to not having issues at Fort Lewis as well. Burlington, we're doing the 2 classrooms in the basement down there. We're renovating those, turning those into nice modern facilities. This is before we started. The picture doesn't do justice as to how rough it was down there. That's a $250,000 project between that and the new windows and all the things that are going into that building. But it's going to be beautiful when it's done. And so our goal is to have that done and ready for the opening of school year. Hopefully, in the next meeting we'll have pictures of our progress. I think you'll be impressed. Green Valley Elementary, we paved the play area out there. That's been completed. The picture's a little bit older. The fence has been restored, and everything's back in good shape out there now. Hidden Valley High School, this is one the board funded through year-end carryover last year. We're just waiting on baseball season to be completed, and then as soon as that's done, they're going to take this retaining wall that's fallen down. They're going to take it out, excavate behind it, and do a stack block retaining wall. That's going to visually, that's going to improve that site as well. It's going to look a lot better. Penn Forest, we just did new carpet in their forum. We've got some additional areas that'll be completed this summer. We just couldn't do them while school was going on. Northside, again, new carpet in their band room and in their music offices out there was sorely needed, and that's all been completed now. They also got a patio, a covered patio for their, I think they use it for their seniors to go outside and have lunch. They actually paid for that. We helped them with the logistics and hiring a contractor and all that, but the school actually financed that themselves. Bonsec Elementary, this is another one that the board is funding, and that will be done this summer. I actually just spoke to Adams Paving, won the RFP for this, and they'll be doing that in the first couple of weeks of June if everything goes according to plan. The CTE Center, I just kind of wanted to give you an update on where we are. We're still working on the contract for the comprehensive agreement. Our attorney finally approved the verbiage that was in it yesterday after some back and forth. That's with Branch now. We're waiting for their approval to come back to us and then hopefully get it to the Board of Supervisors here in May for their approval. If you've seen the site out there, you notice that old house is still there. It had some asbestos in it, and you're required to abate it before you can tear it down. So we had to spend some money out there to do an asbestos abatement, and then Branch will take that down in the near future as they get started. Okay, and let's see, one thing I actually left off of there was the track out at Hidden Valley Middle School. If you've been out there, that track is in really rough condition. It's already gone to RFP, and it's actually under contract to be paved in June. So that will all be milled up and repaved. It's an 8-lane track. It's really not used, and so we're looking forward to getting that project done. We've already gone in and cleaned up the bank surrounding the track, cut the trees back, and ready to get that done for them. These are the other projects that we haven't gone through. I didn't want to go through every single thing that we're working on, and these are just the things that actually make it onto our project list. There's lots of other stuff going on, but these are the things that make it onto our project list. So I thought I'd just leave that up there for you for a second and let you just kind of take a look at the list. And if you have questions about any of that stuff that's going on, I'm happy to discuss it.
When you're through, I do have a question about our construction projects coming up.
Yes, sir.
If y'all don't have anything else. So can you give us a schedule for the summer, kind of, is it demolition at the 2 elementary schools and for preparing an area to start construction, and on the CTE site, I can still grading, or?
Yeah, CTE will start, well, that construction schedule will be part of the comprehensive agreement. So for the CTE Center, that will come in June. So we'll get the final construction schedule then, but they should start grading the CTE site this summer.
Okay.
It's already been cleared, and again, we're just waiting to take the house down.
I knew it had been roughed. I didn't know if it had a lot more or not.
No, we haven't started grading it or doing any of that stuff yet, but that'll start this summer. W.E. Cundiff in particular has to start grading almost right at the start of the summer, because the idea is to get the trailers up around back of that school. You have to have the new service road, the new bus loop in place. So there is the possibility that stuff cannot be completed for the start of school in terms of getting all of the trailers installed and ready. That's still the plan as of today, is to get that done. For that, Branch is doing all of that. That's not, that's in their contract to do. But you know how long it takes us to install trailers. I mean, it's typically at least a 6-month process. So, they said they could get it done. I think that's going to be challenging for them, but they're
Is there somebody
working on it.
in the county that you can coordinate with to say, look, this is coming, let's not make it a 6-month project, we're going to work this out a little quicker?
Yeah, and we have done that already. So when this was, all 3 of these projects, when they were originally started, we met with the county folks and talked about all of the things that needed to be done to make sure that these went as smoothly as possible. And we've held multiple meetings. It's not all in the permitting and that sort of thing. It's getting AEP in there to make sure that they can get temporary electrical service to them. It's getting IAS in there to get the data and the fire alarms and all of that stuff. So, and at Cundiff, like I said, it depends on all the grading work going smoothly so that they can get the bus loop open and get the trailers up there, because, you know it better than I do. That's a real challenging site to get a trailer up around behind that school, and they've got a bunch that they need to take up there. So, the schools have a contingency plan. It's not that big a deal, because they'll just keep doing what they're doing. They'll just stay in their classrooms and continue working, and then once the trailers are ready, we'll just we'll just move them out there to get started. So we're still hopeful that that's going to be at the start of the school year, but it could be, it could be a month or so. Yeah.
And Cove's okay, it's gonna be about the same time frame, I assume?
Yeah, they'll be working on both of those sites simultaneously. You don't have all the grading challenges down there that you have at
Right.
Cundiff, so we're hopeful that those will be ready
Okay,
for the start of school.
good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
The exterior window numbering, it says all high schools. Is there a reason we're just doing high schools?
It was started with the high schools, but I think the intent is to.
Yeah, we started with the high schools because it's coming out of safety funding. So we're going to do the middle schools and some of the elementary schools next year, and then finish the elementary schools the year after. So we're using our leftover safety money for that.
Any other questions about any other projects?
I think so.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Pagels. All right, go to our new agenda item 3.09, discussion of the name for the new CTE Center. I know everyone is excited to see the continued work on Peters Creek Road to prepare the site for our new CTE Center. Dr. Nicely has let us know that we can expect to have a groundbreaking ceremony sometime this summer, and we are waiting to receive more information from the design build team to determine when the site will be best accessible for a large group to do the ceremony. It is truly exciting to see the project moving forward along with the planned renovations of Glen Cove and Cundiff Elementaries. The new CTE Center needs a name, and we decided as a board at a previous work session to develop a new name for a new future of specialized learning at the new center, which will be the home of the newly enhanced existing CTE programs as well as a variety of new programs. We've received the results of the community survey that the naming committee conducted, and the top most frequent words that the community survey suggested be included in the name were career, technology, and center. Those word ideas sound very straightforward and clearly indicate what the new center is about. Therefore, I would like to suggest that we name the new school the Roanoke County Career and Technology Center. Is there any discussion? So we can put that on as an action item next meeting.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else? Meeting adjourned.